Okay everybody, so over here on this side of the screen where my cursor is, I'm going to be telling you about my metaphor, and I chose to use leather working and particularly the art of leather tooling as my metaphor this semester. And I enjoy leather working as a favorite hobby, and it can be quite difficult. It requires a lot of practice and patience and passion, and it's much like teaching in that sense. And I felt like the art of tooling was especially applicable to the learning-teaching relationship. Before the artist begins to tool the leather, they have to think about a lot of the individual elements of the piece of leather that they're working with. So the weight of it, the thickness of it, the part of the animal that it comes from, any scarring, and their future plans for it. The list goes on and on and on. And so I found this quote by Pestalozzi, and I'm just going to read this highlighted part in the bottom here, and it says, "It is also necessary in the impressions that are brought to the child by instruction that there should be a sequence, so that the beginning and progress should keep pace with the beginning and progress of the powers to be developed in the child." So I just thought that emphasized very well the importance of thinking about the individual elements of the child as we teach. And as the artist goes on, they must know how large the area they are going to tool is, and they have to have a design in mind and a plan to execute that design. They can't begin tooling successfully blindly. And so often they draft several designs before choosing just one to execute. And so in this sense, this part of my metaphor could be considered like our education or our curriculum that we study and our curriculum that we plan lesson plans from. And the leather plays the part of the student. So it finds itself in the hands of the artist. And at this point it has only been lightly worked with. It hasn't been under the careful observation of an artist yet. And so it will become the sole point of attention of the artist throughout the time it's being worked with. And it will have some obvious imperfections and scars, and the artist will have to closely examine these to understand them and understand how they're going to work around them and what they're going to do to develop a beautiful product. And then after examining the leather and planning on the design, the artist will case the leather. So this right here is an example of casing, and casing is just when you barely get your leather wet enough to leave an impression, and it softens the fibers of the leather. You don't want to soak it, but nor do you want to barely wet the surface. There's a perfect amount of casing that the artist is required to do. And this can be seen as influence from the teacher. And casing best prepares the leather for tooling. And this is much like the personal relationships that we develop with our students. So over here on number 2, the mind of a young student is like a curious instrument, capable of exquisite harmony when touched by a skillful hand. Much like the leather is capable of being created into a beautiful product by a skillful hand of an artist. But it can send forth only annoying harshness when unskillfully addressed. To a teacher is committed a collection of these delicate contrivances, and without experience, without instruction, it is required not only that each one should be tuned aright, but that all be combined in excellent harmony. So as teachers, we're kind of presented with a difficult situation, a blank slate in a lot of ways, but not really a blank slate. We're presented with, I guess you could say, a piece of leather that has scars, that's had a past. It's been through some things, and we are expected to turn it into something beautiful, but it's required that we really know the individual elements of our leather. So the artist will then wait for the leather to return to its original color after casing it, and this is much like when a student is able to take time to develop and accept learning rather than be forced to learn. The artist will then softly trace their design from paper to the leather using a dull stylus. Next, the artist will use the blade of their tool to cut their design into the leather fibers, deciding which areas to raise and lower. This is much like a teacher taking careful consideration and understanding ways in which they might permanently influence their student. So this is an example right here of tracing your design onto your leather, and then using your tools and pressure and cutting to raise and lower parts of your leather. So right here we're going to go down to 2B. As soon as the stream begins to move, it will grow wider and deeper and stronger till it becomes as the river of life, carrying health and ventured to every part of the land. And I thought that that was applicable to this part of my metaphor, because as soon as the artist begins to tool, something beautiful begins to take place, and passion grows, and the artist can really see that they are helping this leather to develop into a beautiful product, and teaching is much like that. As we apply slight pressure, and as we carefully trace, and as we use all of those steps, we can see the stream begin to move and grow wider and deeper and stronger, and it becomes kind of a river of life. Education does. So after the artist finishes their tooling, they use an edge bevel to smooth out the rough edges of the tooling. The finished product resembles a beautiful teacher-student relationship. It is obvious the product is made of leather, gorgeous leather, but with a finished purpose, decoration, and obvious, meticulously paid attention to the individual piece, something useful and wonderful is created. And I really liked this quote by Rousseau that says, "We are born weak, we need strength, helpless, we need aid, foolish, we need reason. All that we lack at birth and all that we need when we come to man's estate is the gift of education. This education comes to us from nature, from men, or from things. The inner growth of our organs and faculties is the education of nature. The use we learn to make of this growth is the education of men. What we gain by our experience of our surroundings is the education of things." Because of this education of things, we are able to live at peace and become well educated. And so just like the leather becomes a beautiful finished product with purpose, and you can tell that it's just been worked with such tender love and care, I think you could say the same for the student-teacher relationship. The student who has received a quality educational experience will appear to be cared for by their teachers, and you will be able to see that they have received education not only from men but from nature and from things, and that there's inner growth within the student, and that the experience that they gain of their surroundings is the true education that they have received. And I think it's very, the student is much like the leather. You can still see the individual, you can still tell that there was leather there, but at the hands of a teacher, they're refined and perfected through learning. And I just wanted to show this one final picture to demonstrate that through a lot of work and a lot of effort, the student can become into something so useful and so beautiful and timeless and beneficial. And that is my metaphor, and I thank you for watching.